Last week we looked at Britain on holiday, so today it makes logical sense to look at Britain at work. As you may have guessed, British Pathé was there to film it in all its majesty. The post-war world was different from the pre-war world in a million different ways, but one of those ways was labor. Now, after the war, you had women working in larger numbers than ever before, and the factories and shops they worked in tried to accommodate them.
Next stop, a wool and cotton works in the north, Meadow Hill in Stockport. And many of the women workers at the looms are wives and mothers with homes to run and families to look after. Women of two worlds, the factory and the home, with its own shopping centre right on hand, a market in a works canteen. No going into town for vegetables. The greengrocer is right inside the works, and there's everything the housewife needs, plus a smile with her service.
This seems really convenient and all, but I can't help getting the feeling that there's an undercurrent of totalitarianism. You know, like the women never leave the factory for anything, and the guy says, the women have everything they need, but he never says that the women have everything they want.
Wonderful what you can do if you understand a woman.
Good thing they had women all figured out then. Well, maybe not all women. Like these next women certainly got plenty of sunshine.
Once upon a time, it was assumed that a nun lived a silent, passive life of contemplation. See what a fallacy these farmer nuns have made of that idea. Pathé Pictorial is privileged to give you an insight into their dedicated life. From all over the world, young women come to the novitiate here at Godalming to follow the footsteps of these missionaries and to turn the whole world into their hunting ground for souls. They have lessons and instruction for 6 months as postulants. They work in the printing plant, help with the harvest and potato picking.
That was actually really cool. Now, I don't know much about nunneries, so I don't really know if they're all like that or if that was a big exception. But one big exception I do know about is this guy.
When George Dubenin rolls out the barrel, it's rather a melancholy occasion, because he's the last of the keg makers. In fact, he really doesn't make them anymore, he just repairs them.
So he's not actually the last of the keg makers at all then.
Wooden kegs were first used in France and Spain for carrying meat and cheese as well as wine and beer. But with the development of refrigeration, stainless steel kegs have been introduced. The new kegs are more expensive, but they don't need repair. Progress has caught up with the Coopers. Before very long, George will be rolling out the last of the wooden barrels.
It's a shame for a job to disappear like that, but, you know, that's the modern world. I mean, refrigerated kegs and supermarkets and factories and nuns building houses, but there's one job that will most likely never disappear. At the end of it, this job.
At the end of it, this man is a policeman. What other career involves so many jobs and calls the men who do them by one name? What other career demands the services of so many specialists and still refuses each a different title? River policeman, yes. Mounted policeman, traffic policeman, but policemen all. All like this man, with a duty to the public, for above all else, they are policemen.
I'm not certain what he's saying here. They're specialists, but they don't specialize? Oh, go on.
The CID officer has brought those cutters. He wants science to back his theory that the injured man was involved in a recent robbery. It's no improbable theory, for the officer is another specialist, a policeman who has magnified the art of Sherlock Holmes into something approaching wizardry, who can take and make a scrap of paint, a blade of grass, a matchstick, silent evidence at a man's trial.
You remember that Simpsons episode? Thank you, Senor MacGyver. Don't thank me. Thank the moon's gravitational pull upon the Earth. That's the British police, protecting London. And you know who else protects London?
London, the thriving capital that was once destroyed by fire, is well protected these days by a force of expert firefighters armed with the most modern equipment. This was the once-a-year day when the London Fire Brigade put on a big show for some of the public they protect night and day throughout the year. It's smoky, it's wet, and it's dangerous.
Wow, those guys work really hard.
This is only play acting.
My mistake.
But on so many, many occasions, it's the real thing. The modern science of firefighting is still a very dangerous job. It takes courage to be a fireman.
It does indeed take courage to be a fireman, and a lot of people will tell you that it takes a lot of courage to do this job.
Keeping bees is a lot safer if you know what you're doing.
But you can say that about anything, right?
Honeybees play an important part in pollinating many fruit and seed crops. You can learn a lot by finding out what pollen a particular bee's been collecting on his rounds. You drug him first to save having to explain to him what you're doing.
Say what? Can we see that again?
You drug him first to save having to explain to him what you're doing.
Welcome to British Pathé.
So to make sure you'll recognize him, you paint his abdomen. When he wakes up, he won't even notice.
Doesn't it sound like they're talking about that guy? paint his abdomen, and when he wakes up he won't notice. Actually, they were still talking about bees, and it's a really interesting film. Actually, all of the films I showed today are interesting, and you can see each and every one of them in the About section below. I'm gonna call it a day now, but now you've seen a little bit of what Britain was working on way back when. You can see a new highlight film every Sunday and new playlists each Monday and Thursday. In fact, click here to see last week's highlight film, or here for the world of UFOs. Can we have that line again?
You drug him first to save having to explain to him what you're doing.
That's brilliant.